So first and foremost, just to say welcome everybody that's coming along today for our webinar on how digital looks within the CLD sector. No doubt you'll be aware of the webinar description. We're going to have a range of discussions about how it looks within different parts of CLD, such as youth work and adult learning and local authority, but also some of the opportunities that exist within CLD as a whole when it comes to digital. First and foremost, the session will be recorded just so that other practitioners can share in the learning. So if you're uncomfortable at all with yourself being on that recording, please make sure your camera's off for the duration. The breakout rooms, which we'll be doing later, won't be recorded. It's just the main kind of session. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jamie Dungavel. I work Education Scotland, and I am an education officer for CLD that's based predominantly in the Forth Valley and West Lothian region, but also have a national remit to support and develop the delivery with digital within the CLD sector. I'm also supported today by Joanne Ellis. Joanne, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everybody. My name's Joanne Ellis. I'm a CLD Development Officer within the West Region team. Like Jamie, have national responsibility, so welcome for today.
Thanks, Joanne. And in the spirit of true CLD fashion, want to run a small kind of initial connector activity to get everybody in the right sort of digital mindset. So can I ask you in the chat just briefly to think of your favourite digital asset and just type what that is. So it might be something that's a favourite app or a piece of software that you use on your computer or your phone. It might be a device that you have and you utilise all the time and it's something you can't go without. That could be something you use for your work or personally, or just some sort of gadget that's kind of close to your heart, that's something that's quite useful. I was saying to Joanne earlier, my favourite sort of gadget that I have is I've got a teacup that has got a lithium battery in it that powers it and has a heater, so it can keep your cup of tea warm for about an hour, because I don't like cold tea, so that's my favourite thing. Joanne, have you got one preference?
I went traditional, folks. I went for Jamboard because it was for work. I wasn't at play like Jamie, because it's the most like thing to a flip chart and pen. I really miss the control of flip chart and pen, so I love my Jamboards.
So just looking at the chat there, we've got Padlet, well used. Thanks for that, Susan. Surface Pro in it, brilliant. Debbie iPhone, that's great. GarageBand's always a good one, yep, for creating that sort of music and music elements in your phone, really useful. Mentimeter, we're going to be using that today, Katie, so hopefully it's very familiar. And iPad, yep. Microsoft 365 apps, absolutely. Lightroom, it's quite useful as well. Sony i7 camera, Kindle e-reader, free editing FT, really good. BBC podcasts, very useful, yep. Google Maps, WhatsApp, Duolingo, that's useful as well. Spotify, of course. So a good range of things there that again make all our lives a wee bit useful, but at the same time make it easier, and also depending on our roles, make our jobs easier as well. So I'm just going to pass you on to Joanne now, who is going to run a brief sort of Mentimeter before we begin.
Okay, folks, I was just making sure that I had typed the code into the chat bar, because sometimes we lose it a bit. So if we can make our way onto Mentimeter, I'm just log in menti.com and type in the code when it asks. If you can't access it, please feel free to just type it in the chat what your answers are. So the first question, quick fire. Do you currently use digital approaches in your CLD delivery? And I will share my screen. Well done. Nobody who's never used anything so far? But never having used anything is fine as well, folks.
Yep.
Okay. Just move on to the next question. Is everybody managing to log on okay?
I tried to log on, but I couldn't. I got onto Mentimeter and you had flicked too quick without the code.
The code's
Oh,
it's in
so
the chat
sorry,
there.
Jamie, I'll read it out to you.
Yeah, so
All right, no, it's in the chat. That's okay. If it's there, I can get it now. Thank you. Sorry, I'm old.
It's all right. We feel your pain, I promise. I've been practicing this all day. Excellent, brilliant. And we'll just move on to the next question. This is a statement, so just strongly disagree or strongly agree. I feel very confident using digital approaches in my practice. Brilliant. True CLD fashion, this just gives us a baseline picture of where people are at so that we can start where these are at. And what do you think are the benefits to CLD practice by using... Oh no, I've not got this, Jamie, haven't I? No, just 2 questions.
yeah.
Just 2 questions to start with. I got excited, jumped ahead. Sorry, Jamie, thank
That's
you.
all right, don't worry. So thanks very much for that, John. Just again, that wee bit of a baseline to show us where we're at when it comes to digital within the practice. So when it comes to running order today, we've got a number of presentations just for the sort of first half of the session. So we've got inputs from Paisley YMCA, Leeds Scotland and East Lothian Council, who will each talk from their perspectives of how they use digital within their organisations and their sectors, and again, sort of benefits of that and how it enhances some of the work that they do. Following those presentations, after each one, we'll invite any kind of questions or comments, and then after that we'll do some breakout discussion in regards to some key questions about how that looks within each individual sector that people are coming along to from today. After that, we'll have a short comfort break following input in regards to some of the key developments that have happened over the last 6 months around the Digital CLD Award Scotland, the Digital Competence Review from the CLD Standards Council, and some of the digital upskilling resources and opportunities that exist currently within the sector that can be utilised currently for support. And then finally, what's next after the webinar's done. So without any further ado, I'd like to pass you on to Claire McGinley from Paisley YMCA, who will kind of take you through a journey of how Paisley YMCA use digital and how that enhances the practice they utilise within working with young people in Paisley. So Claire, I'll pass to yourself, if that's all right.
Thank you. Just bringing up my slides. Thanks, Jamie. What's going a bit crazy? There we go. Right, let me try that again. Digital, great, isn't it?
That's very true. Talking about digital and getting digital to work, it's tricky.
Right. What can you see just now? Is it like still the holding slide for me?
Still the holding slide, yeah.
Right, okay, that's fine because it's flashing all over my screen. That's fun. Someone can sing a wee song just now.
It came up earlier, didn't it? So
yeah.
Is it on a PowerPoint that you're using it, or is it separate?
No, it's PowerPoint. It's just flicking it away. Let me just try again.
What we can actually do, if you want, Claire, is we can come back, and Emma, I don't know if you want to go first. Oh, hold on.
Oh, see because you said that now.
See, because
just let me get it done now. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Claire.
Okay, so we got there. So hi everyone, thank you. Thanks for having me along today. I'll do a little bit of an introduction and then take you through our journey at Paisley YMCA in digital youth work. And if you have any questions, happily answer those at the end. So a wee bit about me to begin with, just because it's always good to know who you're hearing from. I'm Claire McGinley. I'm the Development Manager at Paisley YMCA. I'm also an RTAV with the Young STEM Leader programme for the kind of CLD sector. I can see my wonderful lecturer from community education here, Annette. So hello, Annette. I've been at Paisley YMCA for about 9 years now. I'm a huge nerd, so digital is something that's always interested me, something I've always been really passionate about, and really I'm particularly interested in technology. And through my role at Paisley YMCA, that's given me access, it's given me the ability to create opportunities for young people to access STEM and digital in a supportive, accessible, fun and inclusive way. One of the things I'm kind of most passionate about is my STEM for Girls Club. So we started that in 2018, and it was kind of the first of its kind within the Renfrewshire area. And here's just a little bit of the STEM Girls' success. We got a little article in the Scotsman. We did one of the first global hackathons just before the dreaded lockdown hit us. And I've been talking about digital youth work for quite some time. So throughout this, I'm quite aware that as an organisation, we're probably a bit further ahead, but we did start, you know, at the beginning as well. So we had a beginning too. So a wee brief history of Paisley YMCA. And if anyone gets the kind of space-time continuum picture there, huge nerd points. So we have worked at the heart of Paisley since 1832. Not me, I know, but Paisley YMCA has been there, and being a trendsetter, we actually predate the whole YMCA movement, which started in 1844. So round about just after I had joined, we had a bit of a blank canvas. There wasn't much happening in the organisation in terms of youth work, and we had an opportunity just to look at developing something new. That's when we started looking at what's out there, what are young people asking for, doing lots of community consultations and some work with them. In response to the digital strategy for Scotland in 2017, it came about that we started to develop a digital makerspace. So we had to move out of our old premises and create a whole new space for that. Unfortunately, all that hard work was lost last year in 2021. The makerspace was destroyed in a deliberate fire attack, which was absolutely devastating for our community of young people and our team. But we're always looking for opportunities and always looking for opportunities to start again. And so we've got something now called Makerspace Reinvented. And it's actually been a devastating thing that happened, but it's allowed us to start again from scratch and really listen to what young people want and help them shape the space. So I have, in true Claire style, a wee bit of a video. I love a video to tell a little bit of our story at the moment and what Makerspace Reinvented looks like. Okay, so enjoy the video. It's just over a minute long. our wee video at the moment. Looks like a little come join us. I was kind of going for that sort of vibe, because we have been reinvented. You know, we're starting again, all over again, and in some ways that's not a bad thing. You know, we can really say that we're truly community-led and authentically youth-led now. You know, the young people are deciding exactly where the furniture is going and what technology and kind of stuff they want to engage with, whereas the equipment in the other space, some of it wasn't being used. Now they're deciding this is exactly what we want to do. So that's been great. We don't want to watch that again. I love a wee bit of a definition. So I thought I'd share this definition that I found of digital youth work. There are a few definitions that fly around. Personally, I like this one. It's my favourite. I feel that you can apply it to all of the CLD community if you remove the term youth work, and it gives us a bit of an introduction of what digital work, digital community work, let's say. So it's really proactively using and or addressing digital media and technology in your work. It should not be seen as a method. It can be included in any setting, and it has the same goals as community work or youth work in general. And using digital media and technology should always support these goals. And it can happen in face-to-face situations as well as online. I think I've found a lot recently when we talk about digital youth work, people go, oh no, but people don't want to be online anymore. We're back in person. You're saying, well, you know, we can still use digital in an in-person environment, and it can be used either as a tool, an activity, or content. So just thought that was something quite good to share with everyone because it can be applied in different ways. In preparation for today, also see that I love a wee word cloud. So I thought I'll ask some of our young people, what are digital skills? You know, what are digital skills to you? What does that mean? And these are their answers. Rickroll, everyone, I don't know, this is still happening. Yeah, I can see your comment there, Ricky. So they have said things like sending emails, Word online for making an app, programming, coding, using a computer, buying stuff off of Amazon, and some coding languages are in there. And I think what's really interesting about this is that digital skills is a really broad term, and it's kind of all encompassing. It can be anything from knowing how to open a laptop and turn it on to developing a website, creating an app, and there's just this kind of huge spectrum that encompasses digital skills. And I think that can be quite overwhelming when we're talking to people about developing digital skills as well. So we like to kind of categorize it into basic and advanced. So basic being what you need for work and to access support services, and the more advanced as you kind of go along in that journey. Okay, so these are some of the tools that we use to enhance our practice. And I think enhance is the word here. Digital, I might get shot for saying this because it's my bread and butter, but digital isn't always going to be the answer. And I know, Joanne, you've heard me say this before. It should be something that enhances the work that we do with the people we work with and the people we support. These are some of the tools that we use. We use them online, and we use them in person. So we like to kind of break them down into what we use to communicate, how we evaluate, and creating connections, having a bit of fun, and being creative as well. So kind of got your usuals. We use Teams, Discord, we use all manner of social media. Canva is how we created that wee video there. Zoom, websites, translator apps are becoming something that my team in particular are asking for just now. we've got some young people joining us who've moved over from Ukraine, and we are really trying to find, you know, the best way to communicate. Again, on that, it's not always digital. You know, you don't want to sit with an app. You want to try and connect with someone and look them in the eye and find that way. So, and for evaluation, we did a lot of this online. We use Padlet. There's lots of fans of Padlet here. Menti, which we've just used. Kahoot quizzes, survey platforms, Miro. That's more with the kind of team that I would use that with. Polls and online whiteboards. Again, you might be in a session and it's a case of using post-its or hands up, or saying if they've got a smile on their face at the end of the session and they're happy when they leave. It's not always going to be digital means. And yeah, we all have to have fun and create connections. So we play games, we play role-playing games. Young people like to build their own servers, so they're creating Minecraft servers at the moment and building their own Roblox games. They build their own little communities and connect with each other in there. Coding and YouTube and VR. So again, I'm mindful that we're kind of further along in that digital journey, and this is how we get young people to cross our threshold. This is what we use for them to, oh, I'm really excited, or I'm really interested in that, I want to come. So what I will say is it's not just a case of bringing them in and lining them up in front of something and leaving them to it. We use this to facilitate issue-based work with young people, and they'll talk to us about what they care about, and we use digital tools in that way. Okay. Something that we also have to be quite mindful of is the barriers to digital inclusion. We're not born with digital skills, and some people take it for granted that especially young people have got the digital skills required to learn, connect, find opportunities and thrive. And I think we're all aware of some of the barriers to digital inclusion: poverty, lack of skills, access to a safe space in which to access the internet was a huge one for us over lockdown as well. We got loads of devices out to young people, we got connections out to young people, and because of the spaces that they were maybe living in, they didn't want to come online and connect with us, and that was a huge barrier for them. Confidence is a huge one as well. We think, oh, you're young, you know how to do it, you're fine. The young people still need to learn those skills too, and that's where we come in as an organisation. We all started somewhere, and our team of youth workers have started somewhere as well. You know, I've always said I would rather have a group of experienced and passionate youth workers, or people that want to be youth workers, rather than people that were complete tech geniuses, because I feel like we can all learn those skills together, but I want them to be youth workers first, because I think that's more important. I like a wee infographic as well, so I'm sharing this with you. The Good Things Foundation produce an infographic every year regarding digital inclusion and how to kind of cross that divide. And I think we can see that where we as practitioners really come into this. So you can see the difference on one side here between people who are digitally excluded and people who are, you know, accessing online quite a lot, and they can do it. It's community support that's important, digital skills are important, and affordable internet, of course, is important. If you have a wee look here, there's the benefits of being online. You know, people saying they're better off because they can check their bills, they can get cheaper bills and things like that. So people really are missing out by not being online. Okay. The other thing that we do as an organisation with our young people is support them to develop digital resilience. So they're, just as nobody's born with these digital skills, there's also skills in how to navigate that world, the online world. It's like the Wild West. I think we all know that. There's a lack of regulation, and you're just kind of letting people loose out there. We're not there as an organisation to tell young people what to do or how to do it, but we connect with them and understand what their online life is like, and we give value and meaning to that life because it is important and it is valuable to them. So we create safe spaces for young people, and that's online and offline as well, so they can come to us and maybe talk about something that's happened. I have a youth worker who has just come back to us. He'd left and to study, and now he's come back, and I heard him saying to someone the other day, you know, it's not really like coming to work here, it's like you're part of a wee community. And it was the best thing I could have heard, and that our team feel that way. It shows that we've just created a nice kind of safe community for everyone. So we use a rights-based approach as well with our young people. So you would have seen on the video, like we have a Satur Play club, and that's really the right to play. There's also this expectation sometimes that young people should always be doing something, creating, learning, always be busy. But we've just been like, do you know that the UNCRC says you've got a right to play as well? So why don't we create a club where that's really what it's based around? So that came from that, and talking about their Digital 5 rights as well. So really kind of showing the young people that they have a say in what happens to their online content as well. Obviously, we support them to develop their digital skills and how to navigate that online world safely, and digital citizenship as well. And there's a really good programme that Google run called Be Internet Citizens, and we train our youth workers on that as well. And positive digital role models, I think that's where everyone comes in, you know, youth workers, practitioners, teachers, that everyone understands a little bit of digital skills, and we all understand the online world to support our young people and anyone that wants to access it. And I think I'll finish. I might have gone over time because I love a wee chat. So, they're called skills for a reason. It's something that we all have to learn. You know, just as the young people aren't born with it, we aren't as practitioners either. I've got, you know, team members that will come in to me and say, how do you use Teams? You know, and maybe I've been quite ignorant and thought, what, I've been using that for ages. Oh, okay. So we support everyone in their kind of digital journey. And I feel that, you know, we as practitioners can be that community support that the most digitally excluded people need to cross that digital divide. And we can apply our commitment to lifelong learning to ourselves and be positive digital role models for our community. Thank you for listening. That's me.
Thank you very much, Claire. That was really insightful, and I think it shows the kind of breadth of experience the YMCA and Paisley has and your team have in regards to using digital to enhance the work that you do, and some of those stories that you told and how those opportunities you provide to young people are really quite inspirational. At this point, before we move on to our second presentation, does anybody have any quick questions they'd like to ask Claire? Are you going to let her off lightly? You okay, Claire? Well, if there's any...
Oh, Annette is waving.
On it, yep, on you come, Annette.
I posted it earlier, Claire. Sorry, I came partly. I didn't know you were presenting, but I thought I would come anyway, because I'm really interested in digital, but the idea of when I discovered you there is really to support you, so I hope it's not put you off because I'm sitting in the room.
I've loved seeing you.
But
Thank you.
I asked the question in the chat earlier about, I was really surprised to see coding as the word that came up right at the front of that, because to me coding is just yuck, and I know how you do it, so maybe other people, you know, could find out a wee bit more about, you know, like, I don't know if you still call them coder dojos, but how you engage people with those kinds of activities in a really meaningful way and make it relevant to their home circumstances or whatever, and you see people really engaging with the coding thing. I'm still surprised that it comes out, and I just wonder, is that because you have all these coders, you know, you do a lot of coding, and therefore that's what they enjoy, and it's a wee bit different from other things that they maybe can experience on their own. They quite like that. They do it as a group or they're with others when they're doing it. I just wondered why coding is the big thrill.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and something that I probably should have mentioned. And I was surprised at that as well. It, you know, it comes up in the middle because it's bigger and more people have voted that. And I think it is because obviously it was that group of our young people, and to them that's what digital skills are. You know, they're like, well, we come here for coding. You know, I've got a young person who started when she was 8. She's now in S2. Like, they need to stop growing, you know, and that's her life, you know. So she wouldn't say a digital skill is turning on a computer, whereas maybe someone else at the other end of that journey would say. Yeah, and I think what we do is I don't know, it's hard to kind of quantify. I just make it fun and make it like, do you know, try this and come along. And we have a really good partnership with Renfrewshire Libraries, who I think are now rebranded as One Ren Libraries, and we've been facilitating their coder dojos for quite a number of years now. And the great thing about that was we were out in the community, in the libraries all over Renfrewshire, doing it in person. So they were initially coming for, you know, they were getting out of the house, they were getting a snack, and they were having a bit of fun and making new friends. So I always say, like, that's just secondary. The digital stuff just happens, you know. And I always say to my team as well, like, if you don't get to the end of that coder dojo session, but the young person leaves with a smile on their face and a wee snack, they're happy. That's the main thing. But digital skills are also important. Thank you.
Right. Doreen, do you want to ask one more question?
Yes.
And we'll continue.
I have concern though, like with digital. It's not that I'm not for digital. I'm very much for, you know, having young people and adults as well connected through the digital, and it makes, you know, a big difference when you're able to deliver to adults online. But I do have concern about the inequality that it throws up across the country. If you live in a rural area, we have an extremely poor we have extremely poor connections. So not everyone in Scotland has these really good connections. It has major impacts, and to me, it throws a wider gap between learners.
Yeah, I would say that's a huge thing, Doreen. I think everybody here would absolutely agree, and I think it's easy to say, well, let's all learn digital skills, but that's why we have to think about, well, what barriers are in place first of all, because there are barriers, and that's not something that they're very complex. You know, there's rural, there's poverty, there's people that, you know, have disabilities, neurodiversities, all of these different barriers that create these inequalities. That's where, you know, the social campaigning and the social action comes in. There's the Digital Poverty Alliance. kind of fighting for that at the moment. There's the Good Things Foundation, and I think as practitioners, the more that we highlight that, you know, to the Scottish Government, to the people that make those decisions, hopefully, I'm being idealistic, but hopefully the more kind of action that will happen on that. But it's a very, very real thing, and it's not a quick fix.
Yeah, and I'd just like to echo that as well, that it's one of these issues that in regards to how education is provided and how learners are engaged is difficult. And through some of the discussions today, we hope to look at some of the barriers that exist and how they can be overcome, and maybe making some good connections about, you know, resources and opportunities as well. So we're not, again, part of this, the whole session today is not to fix issues that arise, but also it's mainly to kind of put them on the table and look at ways of moving forward to kind of enhance the digital approaches that we've got and ones that we can still develop upon. Thanks again for that, Claire. That was really great. I'd next like to bring in Emma Whitelock from Leeds, Scotland, who would like to share her perspective in regards to digital within an adult learning context. So Emma, I'll just pass to yourself. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for that, and thanks Claire for following you. And I was just about to type in the chat that there was a digital strategy for Scotland, and we encourage learners to have a say and say exactly that point, that broadband is not equity of connectivity. Anywho, greetings. My name is Emma Whitelock. I'm the CEO of Lead Scotland. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of this. If you've not heard of Lead before, we're a third sector organisation. We support disabled people and carers through the delivery of one-to-one and group adult learning services. We also provide befriending services. We run Scotland's national helpline for disabled students, and we seek to positively influence change through our policy work. I'm going to share some of our experiences, why we think integrating digital is important for adult learning, some examples, why it's good now and in the future, and the impacts. So I'm going a bit old school with a wee Padlet, bit of an aid memoir for me, but feel free to have a look at it as well. There's only a couple of links on there too. So I'm going to get my bias right out there. At Lead Scotland, we're digitally curious, we're passionate about technology. Makes a difference, unless of course it's not working. We're only human. And I would recommend going through the CLD digital awards that you hear about later. We've just finished that process, and it was really useful for benchmarking what we do. So on the Padlet, the first thing I'd put up there was, I think supporting people to learn digital skills and cybersecurity is a new duty of care. I put a wee question mark for it. It's up for discussion, but I think it's true. I think digital skills are essential skills. I think safe cybersecurity behaviours are essential behaviours. There are loads of new online barriers to navigate as well. As adult learning practitioners, we support many people at the start of the learning journey, and whatever the person wants to learn, this usually means a parallel digital learning journey too. I think the adult learning sector is really good at engaging adults. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. We're building trusted relationships through which people can gain knowledge, skills, confidence. And behind every laptop and device is a person. So let's not forget, digital is all about people. It's about relationships. We're just using tech as well. People trust that we will support them to realise the potential of technology safely. So that human thing, we're talking about technology, but people, it's so important that people are in here as well. So one of the good things I think about technology is that I think it really widens access to learning. I think it can help us be more inclusive. We've been using technology since the 1980s, and we've seen the benefits firsthand, and it's probably slightly controversial. There are financial barriers. I totally get it. Happy to engage with that too. And it's also becoming more affordable. The range of technology solutions which allow access to education and services is astonishing. I remember supporting 2 adult learners in 1999, one who was paralysed from the neck down and another one who had MS, who lived in a long-term hospital ward. Both were learning how to use voice dictation as the way to use a standard laptop. It cost thousands of pounds, and they had to be incredibly patient because it was very difficult to learn at that time. Because it was niche, it was specialist. The only people who needed that were people who were disabled or rich executives who didn't want audio typists. Now it's integrated for free in all devices. So that's just one example, and there's many examples where people, there are still challenges and barriers, but we have to use the opportunity that they're more widely available now, technology. It's more inclusive. We can reach people in a more inclusive way. The kit itself is more inclusive. People can personalise it, but also we can deliver flexible learning opportunities. So we're doing that. We've had loads of surveys run through the pandemic. The demand is shifting. We used to deliver pretty much all in-person services, and people are now telling us most want hybrid. Only a few want face-to-face only, and a few want online. So the demand's changing, and we're trying to keep pace with that. It's also helped us broaden our audience. We continue to engage local learners one-to-one in small groups in 9 local authority areas. But this kind of digital revolution, has also seen us reaching a new audience of more independent learners, including practitioners who are looking for learning opportunities to dip into as well. So, for example, we've been running a programme of short course digital accessibility sessions, an hour standalone long sessions on Zoom, or people can attend a whole programme of up to 10 sessions. And we notice that the learners coming forward for this, their motivations are different to those who use our frontline services. It's people who want to upskill to stay in work, to improve the inclusiveness of their business, attract disabled talent into their workforce, etc. Just some examples. So we're a specialist organisation, and what we're doing is being able to reach a broader audience across 32 local authorities, and some of those people will be more inclusive in their practice. So we've broadened our audience, as all of you can as well, and that's important. There's new learning pathways, new opportunities there. We used to talk about MOOCs, massive open online courses that are there, and how it was really people who were educated who were taking up that opportunities. We've got a Thinking Digitally course. It's a mini MOOC. That's a way of widening access. But I've got an example to tell you of something that you may be aware of, but we had a group of disabled people who co-wrote a course for disabled people in it's called Everyday Computer Skills, and we worked in partnership with the Open Uni, and it's now hosted on their website. And the quote I've put from one of the learners in the group says, "I'm delighted to have contributed towards the OU course content. I'm now looking forward to doing the course." So there's people writing a course they then want to do. That's how you meet demand. And people were also saying, so this course is now out there for anybody in the world to actually, and I wrote that. Feel good about that. That is pure magic. Anyway, I'm getting a bit excited myself. So again, in terms of that delivery, you've got a course online, but you can deliver it flexibly. You can have somebody sitting right there with the person. You could have a carer there. You could have a volunteer there from Lead. You could have a staff member. You could do it by group. You could do it online, one-to-one, small groups, or people can study themselves. Flexibility by default. I've also put another thing about widening access, because obviously that's our bag. I think it sort of increases the likelihood of fairer access. Sometimes people will put on courses and then they'll have special arrangements for disabled people. And actually the potential here is to get rid of the special arrangements. And actually we can all expect people to learn in different ways. And I know you all do anyway. And people can produce evidence of learning in different ways too. And that's the default. And that improves the quality. The geographical location also can, connectivity aside, can become less of an issue when learning in digital spaces, and that improves equity and availability of opportunities across Scotland. Another wee link I've shared on Padlet is called Alternative Formats. Paper materials have got limited accessibility. Yes, you can make them large font, good colour, but electronic learning resources are just more accessible. They can be magnified, read out, coloured, shared. You can create engaging ones, videos, use BSL clips. So I've put a wee Padlet link to some learning resources we've created in a range of formats. There are just more opportunities to welcome people and say we're all inclusive from the start, we can do this, and learning and teaching materials that are electronic are more easily manipulated by the learner to personalise them. And I'm just conscious of time, so I'll just skip a wee bit of there, and I'll go to, I've got a Padlet quote, which I thought kind of nicely summed up a learner, because one of the challenges that sometimes we're sort of trying to inspire people that digital's good, when they're, not sure, not convinced, and there's barriers. And one of the learners who she wrote to me at the start of the pandemic, she was used to in-person services and she was really worried about what this was going to be. And we matched her with people in one-to-one, and eventually we got her online. And so after she'd had an experience being online, she had a wee quote there, which I put in the Padlet. She said, she'd reflected on being engaged by Zoom, and she said, they kept up with me by phone, email, and even Zoom, which they got me to be able to do. And I thought that was quite good. But actually then I got an email from her very recently. So I thought, so in 2022, what happened next? From this woman who sort of phoned me in a panic and said, how are we going to cope with this pandemic, to then doing a bit of Zoom. She then moved from one-to-one to groups, to doing presentations. She then did some qualifications online. She moved into her own tenancy. She's now a trustee, and she's emailed me to say, I'm actually too busy to talk to you because I'm doing this, this and this. I'm working on the national care standards with the Scottish Government, and it's got a lot of meetings. So, and I just thought, you know, people, and my sort of last bit there, you'll know as well as me, we don't know what we don't know ourselves, the learners, and it's hard to realise the benefits of technology until we get started and until we feel confident as practitioners, because we're the gatekeepers of people actually getting on board as well. But the benefits are there, and I think we've got an important role to support people to safely connect. Looking ahead for us, we're working with JP Morgan. Very exciting. We got pro bono support for 6 months with them to build an accessible platform to host some of our courses. So watch that space, and we'll continue to support people to help us to write those courses, and how great we can get people to actually come on board as tutors as well. But can we pay people? Yep, that's where we're looking to head. So the integration of digital within adult learning, you'll have guessed I'm a fan. And I'd love to see more adult learners shaping the solutions, the new courses, the platforms, and getting involved. So I'll shut up now. Happy to take any questions. I hope there was some coherence coming through that.
Thanks very much, Emma. I think if you look at the chat, you'll see the inspiration you've kind of given a lot of people there. But for me, those kind of key messages, that sort of co-design element and having adult learners involved, and again, the journey that they can put on from just, again, having the opportunity to just learn the basics of digital, but then suddenly contributing and being involved. I think it shows the real opportunities in which digital can actually enhance not just us as practitioners and how we deliver, but the sort of life chances that adults have in regards to their journeys as well. Is there any question or one or two questions for Emma at all? You really sold the message well, to be honest, Emma. It was fantastic. Right, well, in the interest of time then, I'll just move on to our final presenter before we move on to the breakout rooms. So I'll just introduce Stephen Mclaren. He is from East Lothian Council, and he is going to do a presentation as well about digital within a local authority perspective. So Stephen, I'll just pass on to yourself.
Thanks, Jamie. So if you give me 1 second, I'll hopefully share this. So as Jamie said, I'm Stephen McLennan. I'm currently an Employability Development Officer with East Lothian Council, and I was previously a CLD worker with Aberdeenshire Council. So the presentation will sort of cover both aspects of both types of digital platforms and interactions that we've had with learners. Oh, there we go. So the context is Aberdeenshire's a large part of the north of Scotland. We've got roughly 267,000 people living across 6 rural areas, split across sort of north, central and south Aberdeenshire. And then I've moved to East Lothian, which has a slightly smaller population, but it's one of the fastest growing local authorities in Scotland. Also has rural areas the same as Aberdeenshire. Originally from the Western Isles, so I can speak a bit to that and all. So back in the summer of 2019, we had a sort of eSchool online digital project with eSchool, the National Digital School. And it was a partnership approach. We went to them looking for a test of change to prove that we could get digital to work within the context of Aberdeenshire for our community learning and development. We had a hybrid model of that, so we went whole hog. We just didn't do online. We went, we'll do online and classroom at the same time. And we used our ESOL classes as the basis for that. We had learners based right across Aberdeenshire. We had people attending in Persian and in Inverurie. We had learners in Peterhead, Huntly, Fraserburgh, and attending from home as well. And the delivery took place from Stornoway, originally in the digital school itself. They've got a physical building, but then moved to the teacher's own home. So we were fully immersed within trying to do everything that we were doing online, and it was really for that sort of proof of concept. We had a variety of things. We were able to do yes/no questions. We had discussions. We had learners working in one-to-ones and groups as well. And we had upwards of 13 people. Not everyone attended every lesson. So that stood us in really good stead when basically COVID happened and everything went a wee bit haywire. We were able to roll out Google for Education, now called Google Workspace, throughout our entire service. So everything on the 16th of March, when it all face-to-face contact stopped, we were, I think, down for roughly 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, we rolled this platform out. We did 65, we did training for over 65 CLD staff. And we focused initially just on Google Meet, so getting face-to-face contact back with our learners and young people as the first priority, and then moved on to more as in Google Classroom, which is a light virtual learning environment that's embedded within that Google Workspace platform. For secure one-to-ones, if a young person needed that individual support, we also had Attend Anywhere, which is what's used by our NHS colleagues for doctor appointments and other meetings. That led us to rolling out a full curriculum offer of 15 to 20 sessions a week, 2 hours a week, plus self-directed study of ESOL. We had 130 learners attending. We had emails going out. We had phone calls. We were able to get into a building, do letters. So we tried everything at that time to get people to come with us on this journey. But it also meant that we had to go to where they were as well. And I'll talk about some of the sort of barriers that local authorities may face using a variety of different tools. But WhatsApp's really popular in Scotland and the UK. WhatsApp is not really popular with local authorities and sort of data protection officers. But WhatsApp for Business is a potential halfway house and solution for those types of things. So we used WhatsApp as well to do some of that interaction, find out how the learners were doing, and they also started then sending their homework in via WhatsApp rather than using the Google Classroom. But they could start to learn how to use that environment when we were able to get them in through Google Meet and work with them through that screen sharing as we're doing now. Within the East Lothian context, it's a very different picture. in East Lothian. We're very restricted in our abilities of what we're able to use, what platforms we can use, and what tools we can use. So Emma shared a lovely Padlet link. I was not able to get onto that Padlet link or see anything because that's totally blocked by our firewalls. What we used or what we're using was Public Eye. So Public Eye is what your local council may use for broadcasting their sort of full council meetings and things like that. It is not a very usable platform, friendly platform to try and engage with learners, but you make do with what you've got. We now have a version of Microsoft Teams. We don't have the full Office 365 package, but at least we can meet, we can discuss, and we can engage with our learners through that to an extent. We're unable to access Google products on the corporate network unless we're accessing Glow as and when. And that is only for certain members of staff if you've been sort of granted that access. Zoom, we can book out someone from IT to unlock our computer, attend the meeting, and then it gets locked back up behind us. So, you know, it's a very different picture, one local authority to another local authority, in what is accessible and able to be delivered. The Shared Prosperity Fund, some of you most of you probably know actually, is the replacement to European social funds. And our plan in East Lothian is to invest in new Chromebooks for our staff and the Google platform. So Google products in its totality, but it means that we're having to create an entirely separate network and infrastructure out with the local authority. We're working with Edinburgh College to deliver micro-credential learning in venues across East Lothian, and the focus is on digital and data skills. Our adult literacy and numeracy, we do that, the core skills level 3, level 4. They're slightly out of date these days, but they still provide a very good basic introduction to using a computer. And our micro-credentials are focused on data skills, and they start at level SCQF level 4, which is just a unit. We build up to a full award, and then we go 5, level 6, and we're hoping supported transition into college if that's what the individual wants to do. Modern apprenticeship, graduate apprenticeship routes available as well. So how did we do it? So back in the Shire, we chose G Suite. The reason that we chose that was it's already used within Scotland education. So Education Scotland use it. It's secure. It's, you know, there's been data protection impact assessments done, and hopefully every local authority should already have one for their Glow side. And not that I'm trying to be funny. It should be a straight copy and paste right across. If it works in a school setting, it should work in a CLD setting. There is no difference. We purchased a domain, very minimal cost a year. That's basically just what supports the platform. It's free. So Google Workspace is free if you register as a higher education institution. That's basically the box that you need to tick when applying through Google. We rolled that out to our learners and staff. And when I say Google accounts, all you need is first name, last name. We don't need date of birth. We don't need address. We don't need anything like that to create a learner account. That means that we're not holding on to very much personal information within that space at all. We also invested in G Suite for Enterprise. Now that gives you some of the nice bells and whistles, breakout rooms, different polls, etc. And about £42 a year. It's cheaper than Zoom, or was cheaper than Zoom, but you can also move those licenses between people. So if you buy 10 for your organisation and someone's not delivering, or you only need it for certain bits, you can move it from one person to another. And we also made sure we restricted who they could email. So we made sure that those learners and volunteers could only email ourselves, with our corporate email addresses, or other organisations that we'd pre-approved that they could be potentially working with, like Lead Scotland or Enable Scotland or someone like that. And that just means that they're not going to potentially try and pretend to be someone from Aberdeenshire CLD. Not that we would expect any of our adult learners to do that, but a young person might decide that that's, you know, something a wee bit fun to try and do. Some of the barriers that we faced was the lack of devices and connection, Wi-Fi data. That was overcome in part through the use of Connecting Scotland and CLD devices. So the service invested in some devices, very similar to what we've had to do in East Lothian as well. There's also the new CLD Third Sector SCVO fund, and that I think is up to about £15,000. So Connecting Scotland may be finished, but there is another pot of money there specific for third sectors. The lack of the ITC skills, you know, that was a big barrier for us to try and overcome. But one of the good things about G Suite is everything's embedded in it. So you're not looking to download other apps if you're using a laptop. Everything's done through a single sign-on, and people become very familiar with what buttons to click where and when to get expected interactions out of it. We had time and family commitments impacting on learning, but we've been flexible in our current provision as well, and it is all about sort of scheduling classes, the use of independent learning, recorded material, and trying to make it all accessible to learners. The lack of the platform, we used the Shared Prosperity Fund, or will be using the Shared Prosperity Fund to try and roll that out. Opportunities and future plans. The blended learning, I think, is a potential good way to try and make some provision more sustainable. We've got other opportunities to engage where they are. So if they're attending from home, if they're attending from work, our digital class at the moment is an upskilling and reskilling class. We've got people attending from work. Their employers are keen for them to get some extra skills, especially because it's round about data handling. A commitment to face-to-face learning. So we've still got that commitment. Our SQA assessments, we did socially distant, we've done face-to-face, and I'm sure everybody's been busy in the last couple of months with other SQA assessments as well. And the beauty of online learning is you can record what you're saying and what you're doing, and learners can go back and revisit and relook or ask for clarification. And synchronous and asynchronous, trying to make sure that they've got a way to access help and support if they need it in real time, but also giving the option that they can sort of leave an email, leave a message, and someone will come back, but also that self-support, that group support from one another. The adult learning strategy, if you've had a look at that, there is a mention within that, produce an options appraisal for a national platform for adult learning. And I think I said at one point that was a personal high horse when a lot of COVID was going on. So this is just an example. I think someone mentioned Jamboard, and one of the things that you can do with Google and Jamboard, it's a very fast graphic, but you can sort of create something in Google Slides and then save it as an image. And this basically allows you to lock everything that you're seeing. And there's a lot out there on YouTube. There's a lot on Facebook groups. There's fantastic resources already done. So you can upload a photo, and then you can get people to use the big yellow stickies and put things in different locations. And I know that has passed really, really quick, but I think Jamie said the slides are coming out, so you can have a look at that later on. And that's me. Any questions? What I would say as well is we've got, you know, a variety of links. There's CLD WordPress up in Aberdeenshire. There's the Adult Learning Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and we've got a variety of other things from both East Lothian and Aberdeenshire saying how we've done it and what our challenges were.
Fantastic, Stephen. Thank you so much for that. And I think the key message for me, and hopefully others that are listening to yourself, is that even though when there's barriers, and there's a lot of barriers, especially in local authorities, you can still find ways around it, and you can still help it enhance your practice, and you can still help it work with the children, young people, families and adults that your service is engaging with. And I think that's a really important message when we talk about digital, because we know that different authorities, different organisations have different accessibility options, and the barriers don't have to be the end as such. Fantastic.
Yeah, 100%.
So what we're going to do now, just in the interest of time, is we're going to move on to a breakout, again, specifically around the idea of discussing the next sort of steps when it comes to digital within CLD and how that should essentially look. So I'm just going to bring up the key slides again. Jump to the breakout. So what we'd ask you to do is we're going to put a link to a Jamboard in the chat, and in your breakout rooms, we'd ask you to consider 2 questions which are on that Jamboard. So after hearing the presentations, how do you think digital can enhance your practice in a very reflective way? And how can you overcome the barriers that make it difficult in your setting to use difficult approaches? And that could be some of the barriers like Stephen suggested there, or it could be skills, confidence, etc. with colleagues, or difficulties within teams. If someone within each room could facilitate discussion and maybe coordinate the Jamboard, that would be great. And breakout should last about 15 minutes with a comfort break taking place immediately after. So when you'll be brought back into the room, there'll be a comfort break right away, and there'll be a kind of holding slide. Is there any sort of questions before we go into the rooms? And Joanne's just put the Jamboard link there. So if you just kind of click on that. Excellent. Okay, I'm just going to open the rooms just now, and I'll see you very shortly.
I
think we'll continue on then, being past. So last wee part of our session today is looking at some of the digital supports, information opportunities that are out there. Specifically around the end of 2021, Jamie Hepburn announced an investment for digital within CLD, and I'm pleased to say that some of the successes of that investment are being highlighted today. 2 kind of main ones that have been mentioned are the Digital CLD Award Scotland and the Digital Competence Review conducted by the CLD Standards Council. And we also have a look at the Open University in regards to the bespoke CLD portal that they've created as part of that investment. So without further ado, I'd like to pass you to Alma Armstrong from the Digital CLD Awards, who will tell you more about this new award that has been developed as part of that investment. So on to yourself, Alan.
Thanks, Jamie. Is that coming through?
Yes, indeed.
Is it there, Jamie, is it?
Yep.
That's great. Okay. Okay, I'll be fairly brief because I know we've got 3 presentations to do and some chats. So I retired just over a year ago from Education Scotland, where I was involved for many years around about digital transformation, but also in the CLD sector. And since retiring, it's great to actually bring both together and look more closely at what's happening in digital around about CLD. The Digital Awards itself is an education industry collaboration led by technology companies like Hewlett-Packard, AMD, which is Advanced Micro Devices, and Microsoft, who give money in partnership with the government to develop these awards in partnership with various organizations to help develop the awards themselves. And for this, we've been working with the CLD sector and with learners. The awards scheme's been successful in supporting schools for a good number of years, actually, by promoting and sharing effective digital practices. And now the government seeking to do so, and at the invitation of Scottish Government, Digital Awards became involved, and through one of these 3 projects that Jamie's just mentioned, I'll give you an update on just where we are with the development of this award. We've based it around about 4 major principles. Naturally, it's going to reflect all the current policy drivers in CLD, but this whole kind of reflecting current digital thinking, the best practices around about any sector at the moment, but definitely building on where we are in the CLD sector and what everybody's ambitions are. And we've heard about them over the past hour and a half, where people are and what their ambitions are. And also builds in self-evaluation into the awards process. We've got this emphasis on inclusion and co-creation, making sure learners' voice is part of it, but also, encouraging capacity building in many cases. So this is about, in two ways, celebrating the success of people who are well on the journey, who are very active in the whole world of digital involvement, but also those who are maybe not at that stage, but are thinking about developing, motoring on, and that in itself can still be used to create an award. You can still have an award without everything actually being in place. And we felt this is really important because every sector at the moment is definitely in transformation, and you have to try and capture people from where they are at the moment. So it's about celebrating and building capacity. Sustainability, yes, a range of partners, including Education Scotland, the Standards Council, and as I mentioned, obviously the government who are behind this and helping to fund it. We had a national development group. There's the names there, as you can imagine. They provided a whole range of support, great discussions, and also, in no uncertain terms, loads and loads and loads of challenge. And that's been extremely useful in keeping us on the right path to make sure that the award that we've tried to develop takes the sector from where it is, and we've got this kind of co-created idea and vision as to where we want to be. The award breaks into sort of 6 what we're calling key areas. Leadership and vision, no surprise there, but it's leadership and vision for the digital transformation that's happening or has happened. We know that a lot happened during lockdown, during the whole COVID. In some cases, as I heard in the breakout room there, it may have slowed slightly because ambitions are high, but equipment's not accessible, etc., etc. Finance is not accessible to motor on as fast as people wanted. But what is the leadership and vision? That's absolutely critical. So we'll make sure that you get these slides, and I know you can watch this in the record. I mentioned the 4 policy principles: policy-led, inclusion, encouragement, sustainability. 6 key areas: leadership and vision. Then the embedding digital into CLD practice. That's obviously all about how things are used in practice by the practitioners themselves, the types of approaches that they're trying, the ways that they can reach and support and engage learners, and obviously learner voice in there as to how well it's all going, what advantages that they're seeing. There's also that element of digital well-being that the development group and everybody felt was pretty critical now in terms of moving into that cyber world. And there's a key area on cyber resilience and internet safety. Then culture is, as its name suggests in there, how does the organization feel? Is digital a natural part of what's happening? Is there some ways that it's become embedded, it's just the way that things happen? Is it growing as a culture from a low base, from a high base? Then professional learning, staffing, and resources. And with each of these key areas, we've identified what we're calling considerations. And the considerations are pointers towards advice, pointers towards what could be included in your self-evaluation to help people understand just the range of things that they can tap into for evidence. Then the broad descriptions are areas of explanation as to the kind of level for each of the key areas. So you have an idea then as to whether you're approaching the stages where you think you might be ready for validation. When we were looking at this and we were piloting, the cyber resilience internet safety threw up a slight issue there with the term internet safety. Some practitioners felt that it could indicate the internet is an unsafe place. We know it can be, but again, within CLD, when workers are linking with learners who are already facing adversity, different perceptions, vulnerabilities, that could be very off-putting. So Jamie thankfully worked with somebody else in Education Scotland, and we've provided some advice and guidance for how cyber resilience and internet safety might well look in the CLD setting. And that will really help people, because I know CLD practitioners are working safely with practitioners, with learners too. They may just not realise how, and just a range of good ideas that they're already providing people to help them stay safe. Let's just see. We piloted the award in 7 different organisations, and you'll see from that list there some names that you probably recognise, including Lead Scotland. Strong advocate, thank you very much there, Emma. But you can see from that there's some very small organisations like CLASP and Kirkconnell and Kellerholm, and much larger organisations. That was really important to make sure it's actually valid, it's going to work in the vast range of organisations, teams, services within the CLD sector. And certainly when you're thinking about leadership and vision, that would look very different in a very small charitable organisation with 2 staff or 1 staff even, and part-time staff, or into a large service within a local authority. We've also trained some validators, and we drew them from people who were widely experienced, really understand the CLD sector and digital developments. And the validators talked with and validated each of the organisations. So where are we? This slide should build, but anyway, tough, it's not going to build, so you can read this at your leisure. The black text is some feedback that we had, because all the organisations, all 7 of them, achieved the award, which is superb, because they were very different. The stage they were at was really very different, but they all provided the evidence, and the validators had no difficulty in awarding them the Digital CLD Award. So you see the black points there, what the pilot organisations were talking about. You'll also see in the green what the validators felt is some of the advantages of the award, and then red what the development group members felt. But certainly there's a strong feeling that this is providing great recognition. It's encouraging people to self-reflect and see where they are. It's also providing a good way of networking with other organisations for services, organisations who are developing and want to tap into other people's experiences and support. All of that then leads to the awarding. And it's, as I said, it's an education industry recognised, so there's currency within that. In this case here, Kirkconnell and Kellerholm is also a mentor, so they'll be ready, as I think Lead Scotland are as well, Emma. They will be there to help organisations. The next stage is that the government have a report on this, and they're considering it. We hope to meet over the next few weeks to see if they will continue funding this into mainstreaming the award and availability to everybody. There we are. That in about 9 minutes or so, Jamie, gives you an update as to where we are with this initiative.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Alan. I think it's important to just highlight the key messages around the award and the ambition going forward, that the award hopefully goes forward to that mainstreaming, and subsequently, if it goes down that route, then future sort of opportunities for organisations, the sector, to learn more about it and how they can adopt it within their own practice is something we're looking to hope to do. Thanks. Has anybody got any questions quickly for Alan just before we move on to our final input? Now, our final input is just around the digital competence review, and I'd just like to invite Marion Allison from the CLD Standards Council to do an input. And again, this is part of the investment when it came to the digital CLD fund at the start of the year, to look at how digital fits within the CLD competences for the Standards Council. And a lot of work was done with the staff and the CLD Account Standards Council on how this would be rolled out, and a lot of information was gathered as such. So can I pass to yourself, Marion, if that's all right?
Yes, Jamie, thank you. Hello, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Marion Allison, and I am the Director of the CLD Standards Council. So I'm going to try and run through this as quickly as possible, just given the time of day, and I know you're all going to be digitaled out. So essentially there's 10 slides, and I will just pull out some of the key points. Jamie, do you want me to share the screen, or do you have you already loaded?
I can load it up for you. That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. So I'll just quickly run through the background just now while Jamie's doing that. Again, really in 2021, the Standards Council was tasked by the Scottish Government to consider national guidance that looks at the principles for digital delivery. How do we support an improved infrastructure for digital approaches? And what about the digital competencies? Map to the actual CLD competencies. What does that actually look like? The methodology, we basically appointed an education officer for a couple of months to kind of collate this work. A steering group was established, desk-based research of various policies and research that was there. Number of focus groups from practitioners, employers, stakeholders, students, further education, higher education, and an online survey. So I'm not going to kind of take you through all the various methodologies, so we can move on. Please, Jamie. Next 2 slides, you can go. Oh, I rattled through that one as well. Can go next. Okay, so here I just thought it was important for you to look at some of the voices, and in many ways this presentation kind of summarises some of the points that have already been made this afternoon. So for instance, if you look at point 3 there, burner phones being used, so the council number doesn't come up on communities' phones or they won't answer it. Some people using their own phones, and if not, contact with learners can be lost. So that's in a way reflecting some of Stephen Mclaren's comments on where there's barriers, where people are looking round it. And I mean, who would ever have thought of CLD practitioners using burner phones to be able to contact learners? But there you go. Sometimes putting yourself at risk, but finding a way to get in touch with the learners in the communities that need it. But then there was also that kind of point about how we should further legitimise digital CLD, provide practitioners with guidance. It was very much needed during the pandemic, not just through the pandemic, as I guess we go forward. And I suppose really people were keen to stress it was always about retaining the importance of relational work with the aid of technology. So back reflecting to what Claire was saying earlier, not to replace relationships, people, but very much as being a tool in terms of how we actually do our work. Can we move on, please, Jamie? Okay, so here are some of the kind of findings, the themes and the asks of what we found. So overall, there was a big issue in terms of access to devices, platforms and apps. It was not, as you can imagine, uniform or comprehensive across the country, and the same goes for access to professional learning. People were asking for a digital hub of resources. What does that look like? And also asking for CLD qualifications. And also, Emma talked about this too, about safeguarding, cybersecurity, the legal aspects of GDPR, data management, knowledge management, all of that. In addition, a lot of the stakeholders were asking for things about leadership around about digital, and also about employment, where we're asking for people to have digitally agile skills within job adverts, within how you're engaging with communities. So they were quite key. Next slide, please, Jamie. And this was just one of the areas that I thought I would highlight. So when we had a look at digital in terms of the CLD competencies, you will not be surprised to learn that digital as a word only featured once in the actual digital competency booklet that the CLD Standards Council have got. So obviously that's going to be something that we're picking up on. But if you look at the competency wheel, these are the areas where people said they most use digital across those relevant competencies. So if you can see, communicating with colleagues hit nearly every competency, with the exception of, providing learning in different contexts, communicating with learners, that hit across all competencies. Remote working was where we evaluated, developed support, organise and manage resources, mainly in terms of those competencies. Service delivery pretty much across all, and again, social media. So there was a real bit that would reflect what Claire was saying earlier, round about comms, engagement and connectivity. So you'll see that those kind of 3 bits were really quite embedded across the CLD competencies in terms of practice. Jamie, next slide, please. Most frighteningly, it was really notable that in terms of digital practice, respondents indicated that they were least au fait with assistive technology. That's where people really weren't as confident or as competent as they felt that they could be. So that's obviously got a key ask for inclusion for different learners, and making sure that that ask is there. In terms of looking for where they really wanted professional learning, was round about cyber security, email marketing and assistive technology. And again, you'll see where these things had been used in the competencies and how many people were currently using them in practice. So fairly low statistics there in terms of cyber security, email and assistive technology. So a bit of an ask there. Next slide, please, Jamie. So interestingly, when people were really getting into the competencies, overall people were happy with the flow of the competencies. They didn't feel that we needed to add another disc to the actual circle, because back to that real point that digital has been, it's a pedagogy, it's a tool, it's a way of engaging, and it should be just embedded in practice. But we need to kind of perhaps highlight some of it, but not necessarily to bring out another competency as such, because it's a bit about your skill and knowledge there. People were clear about where they do use digital in practice, and there was a whole range of tools already identified. People understood where digital fitted into where the current competency framework, but as I said, expressed a desire to make it more explicit. And we're looking to kind of get a better, more uniform understanding of a definition of digital CLD practice. And employers expressed that digital methods for communicating and connecting with colleagues were well used, and practitioners were confident in the use of communicating using digital. So that could be, I suppose, when we're talking about digital, everything from mobile phones, laptops, mainframe, Facebook, all the different social media platforms too. Next slide, please, Jamie. Respondents were really keen, and again, I suppose this can't be emphasised enough, that to ensure that digital delivery enhances face-to-face work and it does not replace it. You know, so again, if you pick up some of the points that Claire was making about UNCRC, the right to play, the right, you know, to actually assemble a lot of the kind of community development work that we do in terms of participatory budgeting, so on and so forth. Actually, really we still need that face-to-face engagement and recognition that it's made services much more accessible, particularly in rural areas. And that there was a note that some employers invested in devices at the start of the pandemic, but there's a kind of fear that that's going to drop off. So whilst there was a big push across big employers, you know, and a lot of funding available, it's then about the maintenance and the upgrade of those pieces of hardware and what that looks like for the future. Folk were really keen to hear that examples of good practice. I'm really conscious that, I mean, the lots of different webinars that happened across the country, people really found that really useful, that kind of 6-minute sharing. Interestingly, we did a piece of work with College Development Network. We found that most college lecturers are looking for 6-minute inputs in terms of professional learning. So if you think of the TikTok videos, how will we do the CLD ethics in 6 minutes? There you go, the challenge is real. And really using digital resources for information and guidance and to support practitioner confidence. Next slide, please, Jamie. So the recommendations that we've got is that all of the changes that we've got, we need to kind of update all the materials, not just in terms of the CLD Standards Council's website, but everybody who uses that competency wheel, how we can get that word digital into the right bits. How do we get that definition of competent and critically reflective CLD practice in there? You'll note we've put the code of ethics there, because that was really some of the challenges that people find round about digital, about safeguarding, about being given online access into people's homes while you're sometimes doing delivery. The need, you know, and lots of these things I think we've already started to unpick. Include specific references to assistive technology, and people looking for a glossary of terms that includes digital and definitions. So I think that's really just the kind of, is the another slide there, Jamie? Let me see it. Yep, leadership, just as what Alan was talking about there, recognising that comes from the top down. How do we break digital barriers down? How do we engage with organisations such as COSLA to kind of help that flow of information between organisations, firewalls, etc.? How do we make that a bit better but still maintaining security? Workforce strategy, do you know, so does this hit into a wider CLD competence review? What about training? Because conscious that there is still a bit of that knowledge and understanding. So actually keyboard skills, when we spoke to students, a lot of them can use digital, but actually they can't type, and that would be really helpful to learn, you know, keyboard skills, how to type, that kind of stuff was still coming back. Basic knowledge of computers, basic knowledge of the language, and for instance, what size these things are, processors. You can tell my digital knowledge is really high. Professional learning for the workforce across access to devices, access to mobile phones. And really it was about developing the meta skills, you know, being able to analyse information through digital, gather information through digital, code of ethics being up front and central, knowledge management. And it's about having the skills and confidence, not necessarily to know every single platform that's out there, but to know what different platforms, if they come across you, that you're not scared to press the buttons and go, well, actually, a Menti is more appropriate in this, or actually a Padlet's more important in that, and having those discussions face to face where people can share their good practice. And also for mental health and well-being, really good examples of connectivity where people had, you know, digital for fun, not just in the youth work sector, dare I say, arts and cooking classes and all sorts of different things happening online where really that mental health and well-being for CLD practitioners. So that was pretty much all of this hitting into Industry 4.0 and Skills Development Scotland's bid for meta skills. So lots of things in there. I think that's me now, Jamie. I think that's the last slide. Check. Yeah. So as I said, really kind of quick overview, and I'm really meant to be Kirsty Gemmell because she did all the work here, so sorry if I've missed a bit. I'm not quite as good as Kirsty, but just thought I'd share some of those points today. So happy to take any questions or not.
Thanks very much, Marion. I think it sums up all the kind of findings, and I was involved in some of those discussions with Kirsty, especially some of the member meetups in regards to the kind of different points of view. And I think the things that resonate quite strongly is the different digital approaches people need to do their job, which is quite frightening in some ways, like you say. So any ways in which we can make that more embedded and remove those barriers, and I think that's kind of the key message of today. How to remove those barriers is really important.
I think, Jamie, just to say the challenge that practitioners were saying is that often communities and young people are ahead of where they're at. So, for instance, you know, engaging through Snapchat, TikTok, you know, all of these things, WhatsApp, even these are really disruptive, ground up as they should be. But yet, as organisations, not just as local authorities, but even voluntary organisations, practitioners, we need to be in that. We need to be in that space. In terms of being able to, so that was a really strong message to where it can sometimes be a bit disruptive and creative, how we can do that safely.
Absolutely agree. And I think that'll just sum us up nicely. There's some opportunities here. I'm going to send this out to everybody that's attended today about, again, digital upskill and resources and opportunities. I'll probably record a little separate bit and send that out as well about things like DigiLearn, Digital Youth Work, .scot, again, Lead Scotland, how the resources that Emma has. But there's a variety of opportunities that are there, and a central place that hopefully will be promoted as time goes on as the Open University platform, which will host Open University courses that are free to CLD practitioners, but also link into the wider sector support that's out there. So I'll make sure that that kind of information is shared as well, and record a little video as well demonstrating how it looks. With that in mind, I think it'd be quite good just to finish up. And before we finish up, just to record again 2 quick questions on Menti again. And this kind of helps us formulate our next steps, because this session today is not just about sharing what's out there and sharing the support and opportunities that exist, but it's also about looking at what the next steps are as well, and how ourselves at Education Scotland, but also our partners that we work with, how we can support that. So that's sort of first question there. Sort of, would you now be encouraged to use digital approaches in your CLD delivery? Which is good. And really crucially for us, what other professional learning opportunities would you need to develop your digital practice? I think, like Marion was saying there, if you think about young people specifically, even again with adults as well, the places in which they go are places that sometimes there's barriers in place for us to access, such as Discord, such as Snapchat, such as TikTok. These are communities of interest that are used in that kind of way. So we need to make sure that we prevent any professional learning that's there that can help colleagues engage with that sort of those services. Joanne, is that Menti coming up, or?
It had been up, Jamie. Sorry, I've took it back down again, but I'll pop it back up.
That's fine. So again, just having a wee look at the things that are in the Menti, any professional learning opportunities that we can support, any ideas would be quite useful. I think one of the most interesting digital opportunities that I've heard in recent times was at YouthLink's Digital Youth Work Network a couple of weeks ago. They had an input from colleagues in Bavaria who used digital detached youth work, and it was a process of utilising youth workers that would go on to things like Reddit and go to various places within Reddit and subreddits, if you know what Reddit is, and they would look for places where they could post messages to say, if you want to engage with youth work, if you want to engage with services, this is how you access us. So they were going to where young people were, such as online forums, etc. That kind of gave them that sort of opportunity to share. What we'll do is we'll leave that Menti open, and I'll again share it with all petitioners that kind of go forward. But finally, can I just say thank you to everybody for coming along today. Thank you to our presenters for taking the time to share your messages and insights and values. It's been really, really inspirational. And like I say, this session will be recorded, has been recorded, so it'll be shared to other practitioners, and I'll make sure to kind of put it in little chunks as well to make sure people can look at different parts easily and make it accessible. But thank you very much again, and hope you have an enjoyable evening and a lovely weekend when it comes.